So today on the Bliss Republic podcast, we have back again with us Jackson Godding. Jackson is a clinical psychotherapist and he has his own practice in the north of Sydney, Australia. And you work with clients in the field of relationships, self-worth, trauma, and you have a new program which we will get into called It Ends With Us. And you also have your podcast Reason With Me. Welcome back to the Bliss Republic podcast.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Last time was good, so I'm keen to get into it again and deep dive on all your spicy questions that you have in store for me, like last time. So I hopefully I'm prepped.
I think it's fine. Well, it's just a conversation. It's
Yeah.
also a way for me to explore where we're both at, right? And speaking about where we're both at, a big congratulations from us face to face for your engagement with your long-term girlfriend, Lauren. That's really exciting.
It is really exciting. It feels like forever ago now. I've got our ring we decided to design the ring together. So I've got that almost designed, and hopefully there will be an official ring on her finger very soon. So that's been a long time coming, and then who knows when we get married. But yeah, it's been great. We only get to call each other fiance for so long. I'm trying to ride that out a little bit. I like saying fiance.
It's nice.
It is nice.
So anything else you're looking forward to? Any other titles? I mean, what's going to change once it's husband? Because then you don't get to call each other fiance anymore.
It's not as special because I guess it lasts forever. I mean, that's very special, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think longer engagement seems like it's been working really well for me. So I'm kind of liking that. But yeah, who knows? We're going into the Hunter Valley in a couple of weeks, and there's a winery there that we love that maybe we'll see if we could get married there. Check out the venue, I guess. So that'll be the first exploration of that. So that's exciting.
Sounds really cool. So you have this new program called It Ends With Us, and there was also a movie. Why did you choose to name it after this movie?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever spoken about it into, a wider audience. But when I went to see that movie, I didn't know. I hadn't heard the books. I didn't. Lauren, my fiance, wanted to go, and I didn't even put two and two together. I'm a freaking trauma specialist, and I didn't think about the name, that it might have to do with trauma. It might have to do with breaking cycles and moving forward. So I kind of just went there, and within the first 2 minutes, I look at my fiance, has also had some pretty big challenges in her life, and I'm like, oh no, this is going to be really triggering. Like, I kind of realized what we're about to do, and maybe other people didn't have as strong a response to me, but I guess it was the most I've ever cried in a movie, and maybe ever, actually. But like, the visceral experience for me was like from three different angles. So the first angle was, really grieving on behalf of Lauren and what she's been through. And then that then tied into, maybe it's four angles, but that then tied into all the women and men that I've worked with that have experienced a lot of abuse in their relationships, so the domestic violence of it all, but also just kind of some of the reasons why we end up in these relationships is because of the origin of them as well. And, that was quite heavy on my heart and in watching it unfold. Then a different prong was my mum's experience, and going back like 50 years, where our idea of men and women is already so different, and we've learned a lot of this stuff. It's been passed down, and I was thinking about her upbringing and what she is capable and not capable of in some of her journey and what she's learned and had to do and has become. And I was really sad for her. And then probably the biggest mirror was in my recovery, in my codependency. And we said this on the first podcast, is the different side of the same coin of codependency is the narcissism. And when I'm out of control, when I am less than, when my worth is really being impacted, I I can adapt and I can get defensive and I can get protective. And I've been very scared of what what a man is capable of, how much strength a man can have, how much power we can possess. There's a dark side of all of us, and we have the capacity to do dark shit. So there's been times in my history where anger got the best of me and still does. And just like, at what point there was some ownership and responsibility taking of like, fuck, I know I have scared some women in relationships that I've been in. I know that I have had my temper sort of get the best of me. I know that it's become from a place of ultimate fear and not having worked through a lot of my stuff. So it kind of really brought up a lot of that as well, and being able to go like, I just want to keep surrendering and I want to do the best that I can for my children. And this is off the back of like really sitting in my, trauma focused world and calling out everyone and doing more and more work on myself. It's been such a great journey. But I guess that it just hit me, and I have never stayed. I mean, ADHD, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. I've never stayed to the end of the credits of a movie. I couldn't move. Like, I just sat there sobbing for the whole back end of the movie, and I couldn't leave. And I just had to wait. And, Lauren probably has more reason to cry, was crying, but wasn't like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? And I cried the whole walk out. I cried the whole walk to the car. I cried the whole drive home. I cried getting into bed, nuzzling in the fetal position, just in all this grief and guilt and shame and love and gratitude and connection and so many emotions. And then woke up the next day and I was like, I need to write a retreat. I need to help people end what they need to end to show up in their relationships and show up for their children. And it just came. All of it was just like boof, boof. Everything I've learned was just like, this has got to be something that is done. There you go. It's a long fucking answer I've never said before. But that's, yeah, it was huge. It was really huge. Yeah. I got tingles and chills thinking about it because it really was very defining. And that's before I even ran it, let alone when I ran it.
Okay, wow. So that is a huge response that you had to the movie, which would have been my next question. Like, how did it make you feel? I can certainly say it was a very interesting moment when that movie was released as well, because I saw the trailers and the teasers and I was like, whoa, 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 like this is very close to home. My experience was that I heard a friend speaking about the movie who had just seen it, and I asked her, look, you know what I've been through. Should I watch this movie? And she said, not right now. Like, it's very intense. It's going to bring up a lot of things. Take your time with it. So I only ended up watching it about a month ago. And when I watched it twice just to kind of really get through the nitty gritty little bits. And I found myself in a place where I was quite thankful that I'm now in a place where I can dissociate from the trauma that had occurred. And it doesn't affect me as much as it would have probably last year, which is not a long time. But I do have the tools to regulate those emotions. With this being said, I think we both honor the movie quite a lot because it has done something to us, and you have come up with a retreat coming out of this. So it's very, very special, and I think there's a lot of curiosity around it. But before we go into this, I just want to do a bit more gossip, because after this beautiful piece of art was created, there were allegations against Justin Baldoni from Blake Lively. Is it Grinch, or is there something that needs to be addressed here?
I probably didn't buy into too much of the media, except for the thing that rubbed me the wrong way was Blake saying, get your girls together and wear floral and come and watch this movie, without really kind of prefacing this is going to be a really hard movie to watch with girls. And yes, flowers kind of bloom and we get to a place where, but there was a lot of dark shit that I think, honestly, and look, lots of movies can be triggering, and if we put a warning on everything, we can probably put a warning on everything. But yeah, there was just a lack of kind of awareness and accountability for me around like, this is going to fuck people up because of how close to home it was. And I'm so glad that there is more of this sort of thing out there. I think what's really disappointing, but also like perfectly orchestrated in like, of course, this is, immediately a part of it, is this is like the world that we kind of live in, whether it can be substantiated or not in terms of what happened or didn't happen with it all. But it's like a lot of it is there regardless. And perception is power, and being able to have big impacts is massive. And people have voices and then they don't have voices. And I think the conversation that it creates for me is like, well, isn't that fitting? Like, this is now here. How do we want to talk about it? And again, I think which society is proving is that we can't talk about it very well. We can't have openness. I'm working with clients that have been falsely accused of domestic violence and it's ruined their life. That's happening too, right? And I'm working with people that 100% have been abused and are still in the court systems with their abuser who's committing continuous abuse that the court doesn't recognize. So the system is continuously broken, but then the people that potentially can change the system based on advocating and using their voices crumble as soon as there's, how do we want to look at this? Because it's like, which side do I take, as opposed to like, let's look at the bigger problem here. And yeah, I mean, it gets emotional and people lose their ability to have meaningful conversation, and debate just goes out the window. And it's happening a lot in our world at the moment, not just about this topic. There's a difficulty, and I am put my hand up and I still struggle with it, is being able to see how I've made an impact even though I didn't intend to.
Yeah. The two realities, right? Everybody has their own reality of what truly happened.
Which, if we to describe what color this is behind me, do you know how many different fucking shades of white there are? Like, you ever been into Bunnings and looked at the whites?
Yeah.
Like, good luck trying to tell me which white this is versus the white that I think it is. It doesn't work like that.
So when people come to your retreat, it ends with us. What do they expect?
People want to know what's going to happen there. They don't get the itinerary. They don't get the schedule because they wouldn't come. It would scare them.
Yeah.
It would scare them off, or it would raise concern, or it would spark this resistance or question, or make them, want to go even more right now. And whatever it would do would just be not the purpose of what I'm trying to do. So people kind of know what to expect and kind of don't. And obviously for me, what you can expect around the outside of it is it's not for those that aren't safe and stable. It's about ending something that continues to get in the way of what it is that I'm ultimately wanting to do within myself and within my relationships. So we're trying to end it, which means we're really going to look at it in every angle, and a lot of the angles that we haven't looked at it before, and come together. It's like, it's not a retreat. It's a movement. It's an immersion. It's something that we're deeply trying to extract and reclaim in this process of what I'm calling, like, it's a homecoming, because we have to meet the parts of ourselves and come home to ourselves. That is not for someone that hasn't done any work on themselves. That's not for someone that is struggling, for example, in that difficult relationship where it is volatile and potentially dangerous. It is not for those that aren't, I guess, equipped to be able to have a level of self-care and ability to regulate because of what is asked of you in there. So the screening is very, very important. As a trauma specialist, it's like the only thing that I care about is screening and the safety and stability of things, because it's just not for those that haven't got that, and it would make things way worse. So people want the sexy thing, people want the immediate change, people want to get to be, straight away without doing anything besides, jumping over there. So I think that's probably what to expect. Is you expect that it's run in a way that's so intentional, so that it's held in a way that really holds and honors what you need to do when you're there. Because what we end up doing is working with shame. We're working with the depths of our pain and what parts of us that are ultimately just trying to keep us safe, but essentially protecting us, defending, and keeping us in avoidance or at arm's distance, so that we don't have to deal with the inevitable truth in their eyes, which is we aren't good enough, we aren't important, we're terrified of judgment, we might get rejected or abandoned. And what we really want to do is be able to fully see, I need to parent these parts of me, and I need to come home. It's just like if we had a kid, what I would expect from most people when they have a child. Am I going to die for this kid? Am I going to do what it takes to allow this kid to have the best and safest environment in a secure way? Well, for me, I think then that means that you do what you need to do for you and parent you so that you can parent them. So that, without telling you the itinerary, we pretty much do a bunch of exorcisms and, extraction processes and deep, dark eradication, and then beautiful ceremony, connection, togetherness, and, through the breath, through the somatics, through the real becoming work that then, allows us to go, all right, I know what I need to do now. I can step into my alignment and my authenticity and create the safe haven for me that allows me to foster the best relationships moving forward.
That sounds much needed in this world and really exciting.
Yeah, look, I would love for you to come. I gave it so much honor as what this stands for and what this is, that it's separate from me. It's bigger than me. And in that process of really allowing this deep respect for what it can potentially be and become and hold for others, I kind of got there and it was like, well, if this is what you want it to be, are you gonna fucking be the one that runs it? And it was like this invitation to go, if you want this to be this, then you've got to step into this level of power to do it. And there were so many things that had to end for me to lead that. And I've been doing a lot of work leading up to it in different levels of, connection back to my own spirituality, a lot of, really the opposite of my biggest asset, which is my mind, just dropping into more and more surrender, working with lots of resistance. So I think when I got there, it was like, I guess I'm ready for this. And I did. I just owned it. And I think the collaboration of those two things coming together, allowed me to connect to a higher power in ways that I'd never been able to before, which I don't think would have meant that we could hold the space that we did. The wind was just holding me, holding people. And it just became this force that was so intuitively just allowing. And it was, it was purely just blissfully amazing. I came back just being like, this is it. This is the rest of my life. This is my work. This is it in its fullness. And it actually made all my other programs that I love running, I'm like, that's the standard. It radically brought me forward into the level it has to be. I can't play small anymore. It just can't be. Massive. I haven't spoken about it on the podcast before. So I'm like, fuck yeah, I feel like I'm back,
Fantastic. It really does sound like you almost had a spiritual experience in it when you fully step into that modality of service and you hand yourself fully over to your purpose. Yeah. It's like that. And there is this sort of beautiful connection upward that happens where we're stepping into an experience. It's almost like an energy that is the same that we were when we were children, because we're in a creative space, we're in an innocent space. We really just try to make things better than we found them. And yeah, congrats. That sounds really, really, really great. The journey you've been on, and also seeing the responsibility and opportunity in that to step into something new, but also the question, who do I become in that process?
The nature of a child, to be valuable, vulnerable, imperfect, authentic is the exact same thing we need to do to reparent. Is the exact same thing we need to do as a functional adult, as the authentic self come back to recover, because we were born inherently worthy, and then somewhere along the line we started to that was conditional. It's not conditional. So the way home is exactly what you're saying. It's like, I have to come back and reclaim this beautiful, innocent, wonderful, magical child's magic and value. And then we end up doing the same things that we're born with. And then that's just the way it keeps going. And then the maintenance around that, because of the imperfection, that is also true. We're never going to get it always right.
Are we ever going to be able to heal?
No such thing. To be healed is to be God, right? Is to be so beyond what we have in this meat suit existence, And that would mean, like, who the fuck am I to say that I have nothing more to do? I have no more maintenance to hold. If I was healed, then nothing would undo. I guarantee you, if I stopped looking after me, my depression would find its way back. I know that my anxiety will just reappear in ways that it hasn't for a long time. I know that I will eventually go back into my codependency and fuck up my relationship with the person that I care about and love the most. It's just not the same, and that's okay with me. I don't need to be fully healed. I'm already imperfect.
So I've been in a state where I wanted to open my heart again,
Oh.
but literally my body shut down. Like, there was a person that I wanted to open my heart to, but my body would not let me. I had like a full-on response. Is it true that our body protects us from what has hurt us in the past? And is somatic work the answer?
Good question. I got a few different angles of answers, I guess. There is interesting studies around epigenetics. There's a study that I don't know the name of it and I don't know the statistics around it, but I'm going to talk about it anecdotally, right? African American women that were pregnant, the statistics around their miscarriages compared to any other type of race was, significantly more, that they started to break down the reasons why and understand it. And they've shown this in rats and mice and stuff like that as well in the studies, is we will, based on our environment, be conditioned to make sure that if this is not the safest environment for our offspring, then we're either going to prime it to be aware of those things or we won't have it. For me, what I believe, and when I read it, I was like, of course. We look at slavery, we look at what ends up happening to oppressed women. If my body can know that it's not the safest environment to bring them into, it makes sense. The study in rats that happened, the parents in their conditioned environments were getting zapped, and an alarm would go off and they'd get zapped. Alarm would go off, they'd get zapped. Alarm would go off, they get zapped. They then have their offspring, put them into different cages. They'd hear the alarm. It wasn't the alarm that created the startled response. It was the conditioning that they think that it's going to come with pain. The epigenetics is conditioning this offspring that when this happens, pain comes. So put all the receptors on to protect from pain. It's evolution of this is how we're going to survive, is we can condition ourselves to know that that is what threat means. That is all about making sure the body is primed, the nervous system is aware that we need to make sure in order to survive that these things are working. Happens in the human species is that we are very, very good at misinterpreting our alarm bells. We will think that the next time we're in a relationship, the automatic response is it must be an unsafe relationship because all of my experiences tell me that it is. Or it's the fear response starts to kick in because this is so unfamiliar that it must be the dangerous. What I'm used to is having negative experiences, therefore I get familiar to those. And that's not what triggers me. What triggers me is the stillness. What triggers me is the safety. What triggers me is the lack of chaos. So yes, the somatic work is so important in that. And the body 100% is the device that starts, it's the apparatus that starts to tell us when things aren't going good. And no emotion makes sense without the body. They're just words. Fear is a word we made up. How would we describe what fear means to an alien that's never understood or knows that word? Whatever language. They don't understand it. We'd have to experience it. They'd have to share with them the physiological reaction responses that happens internally. And that's how we describe and define fear. So it's all body. The argument internally that we keep having with all fucking therapists and coaches and spiritual gurus or whatever is the breath workers say it's bottom up and the traditional therapists say it's top down, and we're all arguing about it, but it's all necessary. If I started my journey with breath work, which is a bottom up approach, which is a body somatic, then I would eventually find my way to needing to make meaning of that. What is this now releasing? What am I connecting to? And what is now becoming apparent that I can't quite grasp? I need my mind to be able to break down, understand this is what this is about. This is the meaning making that's necessary for me to actually then process what's going on. Now, I can still do a lot of that without the mind, which is beautiful. But what people end up doing is what worked for me was the talk therapy that started at the breathwork. So then they say, oh, it's all talk therapy. It didn't work until this happened for me, but they made their way around, which we all do. I started in therapy, then I found somatic work. And then that was the thing that worked for me. I've been doing all this stuff, but it was because of the stuff that I did in the mind, the meaning making, the depth of being able to process and understand things was why the breath work made the most sense. It's why the somatic work then was allowed to happen. So I think that instead of top down and bottom up, it's all actually embodiment. It's all just the circular necessity of what goes on. The body needs the mind and the mind needs the body. That's why people end up getting to the same shitty pattern, because they haven't integrated the wholeness of what's important. So somatic work is essential, but we still need to make meaning.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to describe it all coming together, and it's really circular. That's the way I experience it as well. I want to segue this into ADHD. Is ADHD a response to an unregulated nervous system?
Yeah. I guess if we look at symptoms, are symptoms like attention or focus or hyperfixation and all of that got anything to do with my nervous system? Absolutely. I guess have the opinion that when I don't have certain things in place, then my symptoms for anything are more susceptible to happening. I notoriously, and I've got one now, but I notoriously just like pick the skin off the side of my fingernails or I'll bite. I'm literally playing with this little fidgeting. I have ADHD for those listening, but it's like my body is constantly trying to regulate itself. So is yours. It's his job.
Yeah.
We breathe and our heart beats without our intention. It's unconscious. So the whole thing is operating to calm ourselves, to keep us all in the window of tolerance, to be able to make sure that we can continue to survive. And when that's under any external stress or pressure, and this is the argument around it being an experience that could be based around our trauma with ADHD or our experiences, is we're just developing different ways of coping with different stimulus in the environment. So if I don't eat and if I don't drink and if I don't sleep, then my ADHD symptoms will flare up. but my human symptoms will flare up. My human conditioning will be not as full functioning as it can be. It's got to be recognized that every man and his dog is being diagnosed with ADHD right now.
Yeah.
Right. And we've run out of medication to solve the problem. And yet, the world that we live in, Instagram being the best example, is it is an attention-seeking, super money-making machine that's job is to keep us on the app. And we're then struggling with focus and attention on things that aren't that. So everyone's got an attention problem. Everyone has a lack of focus, and all of those symptoms can potentially come true in any human, right? So hence why everyone's getting diagnosed, which, for someone who's more of an OG diagnosed ADHD, I'm like, you don't know what real ADHD looks like. I've been like raw dogging life without medication for 25 years and was able to get shit done. And it's all a big spectrum, and I totally get that. But my opinion has drastically changed over the years, and there is different levels of being able to manage as a human, let alone being able to manage ADHD. And that's definitely been my kind of journey with it all. So I think it's like anything, the more that we manage our symptoms based on understanding the nervous system and our response to different environments, then we're going to give ourselves a better chance at getting through whatever it is we need to get through.
Since you are also a psychotherapist, did you diagnose yourself, or do you have someone else who diagnosed you?
A psychiatrist is the only person that can diagnose ADHD. But I mean, before I was a psychotherapist, I knew, believe it or not, right? And I think there's an online test that you can do. There's many now that will give you a pretty good idea. And now I've just got to pay some white male doctor that studied and blah, 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 that's now got an approval stamp that I already knew that, thanks. That was $600. And, here's your meds without too much information on what history to whether or not it's my trauma or whether or not there's actually some other things that we could do besides medication to support it. None of that happens. That's not fair. It happens, but it's rare. The reality is most people who have an inkling can probably do it. But again, the skeptical part of me is you look at the Diagnostic Statistic Manual of Mental Health Conditions. I identify with heaps of symptoms across every disorder, right? Like, I have a lot of them if that's the case. And sometimes you only need 2 or 3 or more. If we look at the substance use disorder one, now that's one that I used to tick very, 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 very high on. But I still tick 3 of the symptom categories just being a recreational drinker. Does that mean I've got a substance use disorder? I don't know. As soon as we start going down that line, it's like, whoa, I don't want to call myself that yet. Oh, I want to call myself this. It's like, well, labels aren't that helpful.
How does ADHD, does it show up differently in adults compared to children?
Age appropriately, it does and it doesn't. I guess we've got different levels of responsibilities that mean that they can show up in different ways. But yeah, you put a kid in an environment like school, you'll see the kids that are conditioned to go to a school and be in that sort of environment all the time, and the ones that aren't. So it's not just ADHD; it's anyone with any sort of neurodivergent brain, that it's the school system's just not really set up to support that fundamentally. The curriculum is designed for us to learn in and equip skills in different things, and that for anyone that's not got that type of brain that learns in that way is going to struggle in it. So I think it just immediately shows up in that way. But if I'm like an adventure surfer or ski instructor and my job is the wilderness, my symptoms aren't going to show up because I'm doing what I love and I'm constantly in my free expression, that it's never going to bog me down because I just go and move my body. I just go and like connect to the things that I'm called to, so concentration would only happen when I have to do my taxes or something, So I think it really depends on and this is a big part of my opinion around all this. It's like if I am not drastically distracted by everything, I probably do really well. If I'm learning something I really like, I'm probably doing really well. So I think they show up based on the conditioning that we have in our environment.
In America, about 7% of the children who have ADHD are medically treated. How do you feel about medication for ADHD?
Oh, God. I don't know how well my opinion will age. I've had lots of opinions around it, and they've changed. ADHD medication changed my life, like drastically changed my life. I went from not being able to read to being able to read. I didn't read a book front to back until I was 25. My mum used to read me chapter summaries. I used to have the dots jump out at me, like every dot. So all the dots on the eye, all the full stops would just be like braille, like in my eyes. And I just couldn't read. I just couldn't figure out. I could read. I wasn't illiterate, but I couldn't read books. I wasn't taking time to read books. And I probably could have practiced and maybe got better. But when I started taking ADHD medication, I could read. It was a miracle. It was like I, cured my blindness. Like it really supported. I could finally learn in a way. And my psychiatrist who diagnosed me, he's a nice man, means well. He described it as living with the handbrake on and still driving. You ever done that?
Yeah, it didn't go well. I actually had an experience, one, you're going to love this. When I was, I think, my early 20s, and I just learned to drive and had my driver's license, and I was in Germany, and it was winter, and there was ice on the street. I don't know if you've ever driven.
Not nice.
No. So, and I had forgotten that my handbrake was on. So I literally went into the first roundabout, and I was just sliding the whole way.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
And it was, oh my God, it was like something out of a movie. I was lucky that then I discovered what happened. I was like, I should not be driving cars. Like forever, I'm done. I'm not capable of operating a car. And so the next thing was like, oh, it's just a handbrake. Okay, here we go again. And I took off.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. So the moment you took the handbrake off, you could drive.
Yeah.
Like you could navigate difficult terrain. I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it really did change my life. And I was able to learn a lot of skills on it. So I was able to really learn what it was to read, to study, to, consume information, to start to be able to organize, to put my routine in place, to get to-do lists and reminders, all these things that, you should do alongside ADHD diagnosis. I was only really able to do on the medication. And this is where my opinion started to change. I started reading about trauma. I started learning about Gabor Mate's work, who again is a controversial dude in the field when it comes to ADHD. When I started to come off it, and now I'm off my meds. You can probably tell now. I'm off my meds, and I'm still trialing and testing that out. But I was on half of my tablets for like quite a while, and I can read. I can still read.
Amazing.
I've learned skills that I've definitely needed to learn on them that weren't possible without it. I can now utilize. But I learned that a while ago because I'd be reading at night when they'd worn off. I'd be reading in the morning when I hadn't had them. So it really was able to kind of rewire my brain a lot on them. Now I do feel like I'm pretty high functioning and I'm able to get a lot of shit done without them. The other thing that changed, that would have probably changed my medication pathway, was I learned about breath work after. I learned so much more about somatic work, and really, whether I'm on my medication or I'm not, the way I regulate my emotions determines how available and functional I'm going to be. So the breath has helped, and I meditate every day, has really helped my minds and my stillness and being able to be more effortless. So, my very dear best friend who's just started her meds, and again, life-changing decision. She's tried a lot of other stuff. So again, I think there's a use by date. I think there's a way to abuse these things. I think that at the end of the day, we are medicating humans with speed, with amphetamines at the end of the day. It doesn't make sense. that we're giving people speed to calm them down. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me. So there's a
In
few
what
things.
space does that happen?
That's the drug. It's an amphetamine.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, dexamphetamine. So dexamphetamine, Ritalin, Concerta, it's all an amphetamine. So it's all speed, which
Mm-hmm.
essentially sounds like what it is. And you have enough of them, you'll be fucking high, right? And we've also got in Australia a huge ice problem, which is an amphetamine, right? So there's a lot of people abusing the shit out of that. There's a lot of people using it in their drugs, in the way that they party. Yeah, there's just a lot of use. It's something that needs to be really considered and careful. And I think as long as we're doing it with conscious intention, what it can be really risky is parents don't want to deal with their kid. They're like, this is I can medicate my kid. I don't have to parent them in the same way.
I guess one of the major takeaways I have from what you're saying is that you didn't just take a medication and it fixed your problem. You had a protocol. You had your scheduling. You had all the steps in between of, all right, now I'm going to read a book. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to do that. And you were really intentional about doing the work alongside the medication.
Absolutely.
So it didn't just, I took the medication, I came out of it and I was good. It was not that. It was really the step-by-step approach.
Mm-hmm.
And the medication was the release on the handbrake.
Yeah. And I think, the gateway for me to be able to implement a lot of that stuff. And I say that with all medication. All medication needs to be coupled with a protocol. I say that with antidepressants. Antidepressants work really well alongside therapy. There's antidepressants that don't work at all without any support. It's, few and far in between, and there's plenty that do and don't work in the drug world, which we won't get into. But that's like until I no longer was doing intense learning and I could just chill. Your discernment is what's the most important. It's like, how am I going to use like this as a tool for me? And now I'm off it. I know it's a tool. If I need it, I can go back down that path. My goal was always to have it. I feel like I can now learn without needing it, but that was always my plan. I wasn't going to take it, once I kind of got all the things learned that I want to learn, and now I just get to do what I've learned and learn less intensely.
It really gets me thinking about the whole space of psychedelics. And I think one of the reasons why I haven't tapped into it yet is, and I don't know if I will, but one of the things that really leave a big question mark for me is the missing protocol, is the missing process behind introducing something into your nervous system that alters your state. But then what's the step-by-step approach of having you change your life after that, the integration, everything that's to do with it. And I'm very alternative when it comes to medicine. And that's part of my upbringing. I grew up partially with my grandmother, who healed a lot of things with food. So when we got sick, it was the chicken soup. It was like the herbal medicine at home, the herbs from your garden, all the things that come from the soil, that sort of mindset. So then later I spent a year in the US, and literally, there was a pill for this, there was a pill for that. Oh, you didn't sleep last night, take 5 pills of this, right? And it's just a pill for everything. And it was such an extreme to the way I grew up that I started thinking about, well, how do I want to deal with this, with medication in my life going forward? And I made the very conscious decision that I will try my best not to consume medication unless I can not go any further. That's how I've lived it for a long time. I'm not sure if that's the right way. I'm not sure if that's the wrong way. I've come to the edge several times with migraines. And what I've learned later about the nervous system, there's a memory in your nervous system for pain. And it is better to avoid the pain than to sit in the pain in any case, because of the memory that is stored in your nervous system. So that has then changed my point of view on medication again, so that now that when I do have a migraine and I'm not able to heal it myself, I will say yes to an ibuprofen. Okay, here we go. So thanks for opening up that topic, and thanks for sharing that with me so openly. When it comes to coaching and the healing space, you have made it your responsibility to really divide the masses of coaches. Who is actually showing up responsible and who is not? What can go wrong if you end up in the hand of a wrong coach or therapist?
Death, like suicide. That's what kind of started it. It was exactly what you're saying. The aftercare of what we put someone through, whether it be psychedelic, big programs, big processes, is, well, what happens after? And how do we hold space for them as they integrate? Or the screening of whether they're appropriate to go into that initiation in the first place. And the risk of that is huge. You say, like, I'm the divider. I guess it's trying to call people forward in the sense that this work demands respect. And the strong stance that I have is, who do you think you are to not screen someone or have an aftercare for them to be able to know and to hold them in the fullness of what your intention or what your bloody landing page says that you are going to do? This is not learning how to ride a bike work. Most people are taking people to places that are really difficult and painful in this space, whether we like it or not, whether we say we're doing it or not, but we're all working with their trauma. We're working with their experience. And to say you don't work with trauma is to say you don't work with any of their experience of the way that they share and view the world, which is bullshit. So if that's what we're doing, then each person, different to the other, is going to bring something that we need to really deeply honor and hold a lot of responsibility and agency around. The other component of that is every single person that is seeing another person to support them through their shit should be getting supervision, should be getting mentorship on just being able to tune in and stay accountable to the work that they're doing with their clients. A space where they can speak to somebody, whether they need to or they don't, whether there's something to flag or there's just a tune in around, this is who I'm holding at the moment. And now I know that if I need to, I can share and connect with you. That's not happening with coaches. Some coaches, maybe. Coaches in my circles, yes. But it's a requirement for certified therapists. For me, it's this very unregulated, it's the biggest industry in the world, the coaching industry, right? The self-development world. So the way to kind of find a gold standard is really difficult because there isn't one. Even doing the studies is not the gold standard of care, and it being very hard to regulate. There's an importance of, well, how do I help support people to have their own gold standard, to create what it means to have that self-responsibility and be able to have their ability to look at where they're at with their own alignment, their own integration, and their own refinement of the work that they do. There's a lot of risk in that. We're holding people and holding space that needs the respect. It just needs to be considered way more highly. Even if we're effortlessly holding space for others, we still have a responsibility. And a waiver that says you are responsible as the human being doesn't cut it. Then you're off the hook. Like, no, you're still responsible. You still have a duty of care. What I would love to know is half the people that are in this world doing this work is, have they read their own code of ethics, or do they even have one?
To begin with. Yeah. This is leading me into my next question around authenticity, because this is something that you have to have. You have to be authentic when you are in the coaching space. When do I know I'm in a place of authenticity? And when do I know I'm not in a place of authenticity?
Well, I think what you said is you have to, and the problem is you don't.
Give me your take on that.
There's plenty of people who are inauthentic and think they are authentic. So it's not a matter of you have to be authentic to do this work. You can be full of shit and do this work. You can be harming others, and you can be sexually abusing others and playing it off as breath work. Happens all the time, right? So you don't have to be in your authenticity, unfortunately, to do this work. That would be great. That would be what you would assume is necessary to do this work.
Yep.
But it isn't. For me, I look at whether I'm authentic or I'm not is probably more connected to alignment So whether I'm in alignment or I'm out of alignment. So when I'm not authentic, it means that there's a different part of me that's coming forward. And that means that there is the protector or the wound that's been triggered or that's been alerted to come forward to be informed or to lead me as opposed to my authentic self. So it's very human for that to occur. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm intentionally being inauthentic. A lot of it is intentional, but I think it's being able to recognize there's definitely spaces that pull me in and out of my own alignment. The refinement process and the integration and working through enough of your parts to be able to recognize when that stuff is going on for you in your system is about learning how to come back to the true north, which is your authenticity, which is your alignment, which is the reason and the mission as to why we're here. I'm very open about how I am, and I wear my heart on my sleeve and I kind of say it how it is. The guy that doesn't mean that they're not. It means that they might be in their authenticity, having boundaries and not wanting to share personal information about what's going on in their world. But it's whether or not that's authentic, right? And I think what is in alignment for me is going to be different for what is in alignment for others. And that's the bounce back that I think it's what's going on for me that's threatening if I was to be authentic right now, or what's preventing me from showing up in my fullest truth. And then we work to find our way back to it. It doesn't take long for those that have done a lot of work to rebound back into authenticity, because authenticity might just be, I'm really fucking angry right now. I'm really not able to show up right now. I'm really deeply in my grief right now. Or I'm empowered, right? It's all authentic.
I had a thought about being in the coaching space and the whole other side of it when it comes to creating sales. Because I believe about myself that I'm not good in sales, right? When I go into all these sales, I have to make it work. I have to make the next program work, right? I come from a place of fear.
Yes.
And dysregulation. I don't necessarily, yeah.
For me, sales is about, do I deeply believe that my program and what I do and who I am can support somebody else? And is that in alignment? Sales is alignment. If I can believe that when we get on the phone and I can speak truthfully, that when I hear what you're saying, that I believe this program is going to be able to support you where you're at, then that makes sales insanely easy. And they either say yes or they say no, which is generally based on whether or not they are ready to step into their alignment or their calling to then do this. And it's the same thing with marketing and advertising and putting yourself out there. I was speaking this morning with my coach. Let's say there's a big flood and you're on the hill and you know the path up the mountain and you've got a big conch or bell that you can ring and people are coming your way and there's a few different options. And you know, because you've walked the path, that this is the way to more safety. And if they don't take that path, then they're not going to get to safety. Tell me how loudly you'd ring that bell. And you would only need to ring it until you can no longer ring it because you would start to become too unsafe. Because then you've got to go on the path. And unfortunately, people are either going to join you or they're not. And I think when I look at it like that, it's like, I'm got something here, like it ends with us, that it's not a matter of will it work. It's like it will change your life, whatever level that it needs to be. Like it will do that. When I speak about it from that place, that's the easiest sell because it's my truth. And if that's business in the same light, then business is me. This business is my extension of my service. It's the extension of who I am because it is my business and what I do and what I'm proud to say. You're right, though, when it becomes, I hope this post sells. I hope this thing creates the income. Then I'm losing sight of why I'm here. And I pull myself back into my truth and be like, yeah, do I believe that I can show people the path and that my program's worth ringing the bell for or smacking the conch through? Then yeah, if it sold itself, I wouldn't need to ring a bell. People just go, oh, yeah, that's the play, that's the way. But, I got to try to support people to see I live in a very dark world that's messed up. So, I'm in a bit of a mission to kind of try and make it a little bit nicer and, be more free. But I'm ultimately helping people work through shit that shouldn't happen to them. I'm helping people find their way home to be able to be better within themselves, find their worth. And then that allows me to be in my service and be in my recovery and the reason I'm here in the first place. I'll take through who I'm supposed to take through. And when I do it from that place, then I know I'm doing what I can.
So coming back to your retreat, have you made the experience that if you don't have self-worth, you can't be authentic?
Kinda. We're inherently worthy. So when we are doubting whether or not we are worthy, then it's going off the beliefs of what is. So if I look as me in my full functional world, is to be able to be authentic, is to be able to fully express me, who I am in the world and how I experience the world. If there's a reason I can't do that I've decided based on my meaning that I've assigned to it and my perception, my experiences, then I'm choosing attachment over authenticity and choosing safety potentially over authenticity. So it's very hard to be fully authentic when there's a question around whether or not I feel worthy or valuable to be here. Because that thought itself is a condition that I've been conditioned to believe. So we can be authentically unworthy, I guess, right? Can get a bit, paradoxical in the sense that the most authentic me is someone that hates themselves, I guess, right? But in the way that I look at it, it's like the truest version of me is me being able to fully be, the essence of me, which means there's no restrictions, there's no hesitations. It's just allowance and willingness. And that's, hard to fully be all the time. So I think it's like, it's not enlightenment, but it is like, authentic is being real.
Are you real once you've integrated your shadow sides? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it means that the fullest you is allowed, is because you can be a very real human suffering in the shadow, right? But it's like the way that we finally come home, right? The way that we finally can have us is the recognition that my goal is to manage my shame based on my experiences, right? So I'm not good enough is never going to not be there. That's one of my messages. I'm not good enough. I don't matter. It's shame. It's an emotion. It comes and goes like all other emotions. So when it comes up, I just find a much faster, quicker, better way to be able to manage it. And that's when it comes up, it's like, I'm doubting or I'm in my lack or less than. So it's how quickly I can come home to that, be imperfect in that, have compassion for that, be able to intuitively protect myself in that, shine the light of awareness onto it, and then nurture myself. That's the authentic experience. It's just being real in whatever mess that is, being imperfect in the goal. Like an authentic parent is, which is a lot of this work, it's reparenting. An authentic parent is the one that you can see that loves their kid but struggles in moments with them and feels powerless in some of that and is doubtful in some experiences, but it's the authenticity of kind of coming back to them and going, okay, how do I manage? How do I maintain?
Mm-hmm. Now we come to the final question.
All right, hit me.
All right.
Question.
So the last time I asked you the question around the most important thing you've learned about love. So I'm not going to ask you this question again. I'm going to ask you a different question. So if you could travel in time and had the choice to either jump back 200 years or jump forward 200 years, which one would you pick and why?
I guess being present is always going to be the one that allows me to, I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what's happened. And, a lot of things that I wanted to go right, at the time, I'm really glad that didn't. And now I'm here, right? So I think there's a big, deep respect for the presence. I think the future doesn't, I don't care. I won't be here in 200 years. It'd be cool to see what it looks like. But if I go back, then I'll be able to know a lot and have a really big influence. Yeah, I probably think the coaching industry wouldn't be as significantly oversaturated and the biggest industry in the world because we might not have needed that much coaching. So I think I would probably do the past and do what I can in the same mission that I have now, which is helping people reclaim their worth and probably to help create legacy that really ripples. So if I could, have the luxury of going back in time, I'd choose the people that I think will have the biggest impact on our world and reclaim their worth for them so that they can have legacies that ripple, and then the children and the children's children and however many generations it takes to get to where we are today, we'd see a very different world. I'd love to go back in time also to just experience some of the cool things that happened in the last 200 years as well. I'd love to have been at a few different experiences. I probably would have loved to just experience the 70s. I think having a good big party with not much care and liberation and freedom being something that we finally get. I think that would have been a cool thing to be a part of. I think being able to be in a world where there wasn't all this shit that we have now, and just it was all just land, and it was all just slowly coming into civilization. I think that'd be pretty cool just to experience. I think I would love to just be part of my great grandparents' significant moments. What the hell was going on for them? Be it some of their big moments to understand more of how the hell am I who I am and how I am right now, because I don't have a lot of that historical memory. So that'd be cool. What would their biggest and best memories be, and get to do that, go back and be a part of my dad's favorite experiences and mum's favorite experiences, and then all the generations there. That'd be really special.
Yeah, that would be special. Love that. Thanks for sharing. So tell me, where can people find you? What's coming up in the world of Jackson Godding?
I am running It Ends With Us again in November. That's just going to be really beautiful. I've got, my one-on-one programs that are all in my bio and my website that are, again, quite exclusive and have to be, really kind of equipped and ready to do a lot of the deep dive. And then I have a one-day event coming up that I'll probably run a couple of times, which is going to be called Repeat Until Death, which
that sounds intense.
Sounds intense, but it's actually all about genuine compassion, and we just need that until death. So I'm going to be running them, which will be a bit of a taster to It Ends With Us, and allow people to access to work with me and really see what it's all about and see if they want to take the leap and do It Ends With Us. That's that. And then I guess my community and my little groups that I do, that I talk, that I think you're in as well, which is cool. And yeah, I just hang out a lot on Instagram in the DMs. So even just finding me in there.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate your work. I really appreciate the container that you hold also for the other coaches out there. And your work is always very inspiring and appreciated. So keep doing the good work.
Yeah, you do make it very easy to talk a really, really long time. So thank you for actually putting in the time and effort to, really think about what you want to ask. And I know that comes from a really beautiful place. So I appreciate every bit of thoughtful detail that goes into it that makes these really good. We would have fun regardless, but it's nice to have that touch. So I'm glad Bliss is back.
If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who can benefit from it. Have a beautiful day, bliss and bless.